When I was a young lad in the 90s and the early 2000s, one of my favorite pastimes was consuming large amounts of very spooky material that I would find online, which at the time was mostly reportedly true pictures of ghosts and other paranormal phenomena. Which, now that I think of it, I did suffer from night terrors as a child around the same time, which I kind of wonder if those two things might be connected. Either way, I was feeling nostalgic recently, so I decided to go back and look at some of those same spooky photos that really haunted me, for lack of a better term, as a kid. And these are in no particular order. This is not my top five. These are just five supposedly true ghost photos that I remember from when I was a kid. So here they are. The Cooper family ghost. Now, this picture, more than any of the others, haunted my dreams as a kid. I had nightmares about this picture over and over and over again. The story goes that a nice family called the Coopers moves into a new home. And one of their first nights in the house, they're sitting around together eating dinner, and somebody decides to take a picture to commemorate them moving into their house. So you have two women holding two children, everybody's smiling, everybody's having a good time, and when the photo is snapped, they don't see anything unusual there in person. However, once the photos get developed, they see something that is obviously extremely wrong because a body is falling from the ceiling. It either looks like it's in mid-fall, going to crash into the dinner table, or potentially it's hanging and swinging from the rafters upside down. When I came across this photo again for the first time in at least a decade, maybe 15 years, I had to find out if there was any more information about it, because it is legitimately one of the creepiest photos that I've ever seen in my life. And doing just a tiny bit of research, I was able to find that, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, this picture is not an authentic picture of a ghost. It's not real, or at least it's not real according to a photographer named Richard Ramsdell. Back in the 1970s, Richard used to make these pieces of art. What Richard would do was he would take these very innocent looking photos, like a family eating dinner or children playing, and he would add an element to them that would completely change their meaning. So a nice picture of a family sat at the dinner table, smiling, enjoying their meal, now suddenly becomes an absolute horror show when a body falls from the ceiling. There's a great video interview by a YouTuber named Jeffio who sat down with Richard Ramsdell, and he explained the whole story behind it. Now, he wasn't setting out to create a fake ghost photo. This was just another installment in a series of artistic works that Richard had done, but he explained exactly how he did it. Basically, what he did is he took the original photo and he projected it upside down on a screen, and then he stood in front of it and he raised his arms into the air, added a little bit of motion to create a blur, and it looked, when you turned it back the right way, as if there was a body falling out of the ceiling. And to prove that he was the one who created this modified photo, he even had the original photo, which shows nothing but a nice little family sitting around smiling and having dinner. So I can rest a little bit easier tonight knowing that this photo is not an authentic photo of ghosts, but it is still very creepy nonetheless. And I might still have nightmares about it. I'll let you know. The Brown Lady of Raynham Hall. Unlike some of the other entries in this video, we know exactly who this spirit is supposed to be. Long before this photo was ever taken, a spirit was said to haunt Raynham Hall in Norfolk, England. Many people told tales over the years, over centuries really, about visiting Raynham Hall and being confronted by the spirit of a woman in a beautiful long brown dress or brown nightgown. Hence the name, the Brown Woman of Raynham Hall. Let's go all the way back to Christmas time of 1835. Raynham Hall put on these big, elaborate holiday festivities where people would come in from all over England and enjoy themselves with music and libations and dancing and all kinds of good stuff. The group partied late into the night, and finally it was time to return to their quarters. Many of the bedrooms were over in one particular section of the house, so they kind of went together as a group over to this section of Raynham Hall. They climbed the stairs to get back to the guest rooms, and once they reached the top of the stairs, they were shocked to find themselves confronted with a ghostly figure in a brown flowing dress. Slowly the figure turned, and what they then saw was even more horrifying, because this figure, this woman, did not have eyes. Where her eyes were meant to be was nothing but empty sockets, and her face was glowing in this pale, ghastly light. Later on, members of the group noticed that the woman that they saw bore a striking resemblance to one of the portraits that was hanging in Raynham Hall and is still there today. The portrait is of a woman named Dorothy Walpole. Dorothy had been the second wife of a man named Charles Townshend, who during the mid-1700s, Charles had been the Lord of Raynham Hall. Now, Charles did not have, let's say, the best reputation. He was not known for being a very nice guy. He was in fact known for having a very vicious temper and not always being super reasonable. So for one reason or another, he became convinced that his wife Dorothy was adulterous. And in response to this belief, he took her and he locked her into one of the bedrooms of Raynham Hall and refused to ever let her out again. Now, is that version true? I saw a bunch of different accounts of what exactly happened to Dorothy, so I don't know, but this seems to be the most prevalent version. Either way, people are pretty convinced that the brown lady of Raynham Hall is Dorothy. I could make a whole video about Raynham Hall, but I'm going to try to focus just on this photograph. So let's refocus. In 1936, a man named Captain Hubert C. Provon was taking photos of Raynham Hall for a very prominent, at the time, prominent magazine called Country Life. He was visiting there with his assistant, and they were basically given free access to go wherever they wanted in Raynham Hall to take pictures. They hadn't been taking pictures for very long at this location. They had just photographed the main grand staircase of Raynham Hall, and they were getting ready to break down their camera and to move to another location. And as they're getting ready to break down the camera, Provon hears his assistant say, "Look over there on the staircase." Captain Provon looks over to the staircase and he sees what he described as a very strange brown vapor hovering on the staircase. And he watched as it descended the staircase, almost like a person would. He continued watching as this brown vapor started to condense into what he described as the very clear figure of a woman. So as quickly as he could, he got his camera ready and he snapped one more picture on that location, and that is the very famous picture that you now see on your screen. It's probably one of the best known, allegedly true and authentic ghost photos out there. Now, a few things that add to the credibility of this photo. One, obviously the story. And two, the photograph, the original, was taken on plate. It was not taken on film. Now, I'm not a photographer. I know absolutely nothing about photography. I'm not really sure how photography on plate works, but based on what I've read, the opinions of others, it would be much more difficult to fake a photograph that was on plate rather than on film, and especially on digital. Allegedly, the original plate of this photograph has been examined, and sure enough, what you see on the screen is indeed what was on that original plate photograph. Another thing that adds credibility to this is that Captain Provon did not go to Raynham Hall looking for ghosts. He was a professional photographer, very credible, and he went to Raynham Hall to take pictures for a well-known magazine. He just happened to be in the right place at the right time to capture this now very famous photo. It's probably one of the most scrutinized ghost photos out there, and over the years, many people have tried to duplicate it to try to create the exact same set of circumstances that Captain Provon had when he took the photograph. And I've looked at a few that try to recreate it, and nothing looks quite right to me. But I'll let you tell me what you think. Do you think this one's authentic or not? The Chinnery backseat ghost. The year is 1959 when 44-year-old Mabel Chinnery of Suffolk, England, was getting ready to go visit the grave of her mother, which was located in a nearby cemetery. Accompanying her on this trip was her husband Jim, as well as her brand new camera. Mabel really wanted to take photos of her mother's grave. This was the nicest camera that she ever had, and she wanted to make sure she had photos that she could then pass down through the generations. They get to the cemetery, they take lots of photos, and as Mabel is walking back to the car to leave, she sees that she has one more shot left in that particular reel of film. So she just kind of points it at the car. Her husband is sitting in the car to finish out this film reel. She snaps a picture. At the time, she saw nothing strange when she was looking at her husband sitting in the car, and she noticed nothing strange until she got the photographs developed. She picks them up from the developer and she takes them back home. That particular day, she had some friends over with her, so they get out the photographs and she's just kind of showing them to her friends and they're flipping through them. They get to the final photograph and she says, "Oh, I just took that one of Jim sitting in the car," when one of her friends shrieks, "Oh my God, Mabel, that's your mother." She points to the back seat behind Jim, and sure enough, there's a figure there sitting behind her husband. Now she is 100% sure, as her husband is, that there was nobody else in the car that day. Mabel didn't know what to think about this picture, but there were a few key points that made her believe that maybe there was something paranormal going on here. Number one being that her mother did indeed love accompanying her and her husband on their trips around town, and whenever she went with them somewhere, she would always sit in the back seat. Number two being something that Mabel's mother said to her when she was on her deathbed. She said to Mabel, "Please don't worry. You'll never come to any harm because I will still be with you." And based on this photo, maybe she was. Manila Ghost Girl. So this is the sole digital photo that I have on this list because, again, I saw most of these photos in the late 90s, early 2000s, when digital was just becoming widely used by the consumer. And even back then, that kind of made me question its authenticity a little bit because obviously digital is much easier to manipulate. But regardless, this photo used to really creep me out. Now, the story goes that these two young women are going out for a night of fun in Manila, in the Philippines, sometime around 2003. The night is a blast. They're having a great time. So as they're going to catch a cab or walk back home, they say, "You know what, we should really take a picture so that we can remember all the fun times we had tonight." They don't have a traditional camera, but at this point, cell phones had just started to come with these very rudimentary cell phone cameras. Remember, it's 2003, so definitely not an iPhone, but what they're said to have is a Nokia 7250. Now, when the photo was taken, the girls noticed nothing unusual. The night was a blast. There was nothing weird at all about the night. But later on, they looked at the picture and they were shocked because very clearly there is what appears to be a ghost grabbing one of the young women by the arm. Unlike the other photographs in this list, the origin of this photo is pretty nebulous. We really have no idea who took this photo or who these young women are. That might be kind of lost to internet obscurity. However, the woman in white is a very common figure in the folklore of the Philippines. Now, there's a number of different origin stories of the woman in white, but one of the most prevalent ones is that the woman in white was originally a young woman who was a student at the University of the Philippines in Manila. And she had gone out, just like the girls, for a night of fun in the city. And on her way home, she hailed a cab. She gets into the cab, and unfortunately, she suffers a terrible fate at the hands of this evil cab driver. And now, so the legend goes, the woman in white wanders the streets of Manila late at night looking to take revenge on the cab driver who wronged her. And there's tons and tons of stories about cab drivers who have encounters with a woman in white, usually described as a young woman, who for them it's a very scary experience because this one has a vendetta against cab drivers. But in this photo, it doesn't seem like this woman in white is posing any kind of threat. Could it be, maybe, that this fabled woman in white is trying to protect these two young women? Looking at the photo, it kind of looks like she's being protective and she's grabbing one of the girls on the arm to either try to tell her something or try to pull her in one direction. Could it be that the young women were unknowingly in very extreme danger and this woman in white was trying to protect them? Like I said, the true story, the origin of this photo is unknown, and it will probably always be unknown, but that kind of makes it more interesting anyway. The vacation party ghost. A group of friends is out on holiday at the hotel Ferienzeiten in Morach, Austria in 1988. They had been on their trip for several days, and now this was the final night of their trip before they were going to go back home. So they're all at dinner on this final night of their trip, and they were having a blast, and the whole trip had been a blast, so they wanted to take a picture to commemorate all of the fun times that they had together. One of the people there had a camera. Remember, this is 1988, so definitely not a digital camera. And he took the camera and he placed it on a neighboring table and he put a timer on it since they wanted everybody to be in the photo together. The camera snaps a picture, but unfortunately the flash doesn't go off. So he does it again, puts it on the table, puts a timer on it, and the second time the flash does go off. Since it's not digital, they had to wait until the photographs were developed, but when the photographs were developed, they were shocked at the results. So this second picture, the one that did have the flash on, looks totally normal. Everybody in their group is present and accounted for, and there are no extra people. However, that first picture, the one that the flash did not go off, something is not right. They were one person too many. Very clearly in the picture, there is what appears to be a woman sitting at the table that nobody can identify and that they're positive wasn't there when they took the picture. Each member of the group was asked, "Do you have any idea who this woman is?" None of them knew, and all of them attested that they're positive there was not an extra woman there sitting at the table that night. What's even stranger is that the appearance of this woman doesn't match the rest of the group. Although the flash didn't go off, so it's not a super high quality picture, but this mystery woman is far blurrier than all of the other people in the group. And it's also like she's too large. From looking at the picture, it looks like she's in between two women in the group, but it almost looks like she's closer to the camera than the other women and the other people in the group are. But this obviously couldn't be, because if she was as close to the camera as she appears, she would be sitting right in the middle of the table and her head and her torso would be coming up through the wooden table. Unlike some of the others that I have on this list, this picture doesn't exactly strike terror, although it is kind of strange. I mean, the woman does appear to be having a great time. She has a very big smile on her face. To me, she looks pretty friendly. I like to think that she's just a roaming spirit who saw a group of people having a good time and said, "Hey, that looks pretty fun." But it does make you think. The next time you're out to dinner with your friends or you're out having a drink, there might be somebody there with you that you can't see. And you'll never know that they were there unless you happen to snap a picture at precisely the right time. Thank you so much for watching my spooky video. I used to love looking at allegedly real photos of ghosts when I was a kid, which probably explains why I also had night terrors as a kid. But these are some that were kind of a blast from the past for me. I haven't seen some of these in years and years, so this one was kind of fun to make. Either way, thank you so much for watching. If you're not subscribed, please consider it. Please consider liking the video, or it'd be awesome if you could leave a comment. I got more spooky videos coming up, so stick around. I love you. Bye-bye.